Welcome, data people. We are Zuma. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zuma. Zuma is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you a platform to hear the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we are joined by Willem de Kleijne, Director of Product across Berlin, New York, and London at Artsy. Wilhelm, welcome. How are you?
Thanks, man. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So a little introduction to yourself for those who don't know. What are Artsy? What do you do?
Artsy is basically a marketplace where you can buy and sell art. We dabble in, fine art, Banksy's, Warhols, both like sculptures as well as paintings mostly. It's mostly the higher price points, or if you're in the market for a Richter or something, you're more than welcome to browse artsy.net. But also we also sell prints and more affordable works of art.
Okay, nice. So as a director of product at a company such as Artsy, what kind of responsibilities do you have? What's your day-to-day business?
So I'm responsible for the platform, which means DevOps, infrastructure, security, data engineering, but also the translation from data into insights. So we obviously sit on a huge data layer, encompassing all the data that our customers generate, but also market data, historical data, auction results. And we try and turn those into insights so that our users can buy art with more confidence.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about that. So using the data to provide insights, where do you start?
You know, what's really interesting. The art market seems very different from other markets, right? Because it's very opaque. Historically, buying art is a super difficult experience because you have to go to a gallery. You basically have to convince them that you're worthy of buying, a nice work by an upcoming artist or even like an established artist. And we're trying to take away that friction by creating transparency, by creating a marketplace. And these insights are one of the ways through which we try and achieve that. Because it's really easy, right? You can see patterns in markets, just like in any other market. And in art, if you know where to look, if you digest all of the data, you can identify like a handful of galleries that will have the next Warhol on their roster. If you buy one of their works now, and 10 years from now, you're guaranteed to make like 100 times or 1,000 times on your initial investment.
So is the platform leaning towards investments and that market as opposed to, I mean, some people might say, when I want to buy a piece of art, it's because I see it and I feel something.
I love the way you phrase that, because that is indeed the balance that we have to keep as product people every day. Because a lot of people do see it as an investment. If you're spending upwards of 100K on a piece, you're gonna want some security, some kind of confidence that it's going to retain its value. But at the same time, I mean, beauty will save the world. Art is indeed that emotional purchase, that thing that you need to feel. So striking a balance between our user needs is one of the hardest things to do as a product manager in art, because there's very different personas who have very different, priorities when it comes to buying art.
I mean, some people invest in art and just have it stored away. They don't have a big piece in their living room.
It's actually a lot worse than that, even, because we have some competitors who sell fractions of a piece. So they'll buy a Van Gogh and they'll sell shares in a company that owns that specific piece. So that's really like an investment, almost like a stock that you're buying. We don't do that. We are in the end about, selling art to people who are passionate about art and supporting artists that way. We're not a financial institution or anything.
No, fascinating. And working at Artsy, say if you're in a data team, for example, do you find you also have passion for art? Do you have to understand the users? How does that work day to day?
It does help a lot. It took me about 6 months to fully digest how the industry operates because in any industry, whether if you work at Zalando or you work at Farfetch or at Flixbus, those are all two-sided marketplaces that have specifics about either fashion or travel. It doesn't really matter in the end. Anything requires expertise that is industry specific. But for art, it's kind of it's a bit different because the art industry thrives on opaqueness. It uses secrecy to inflate prices and to keep people out. It's very very exclusive in that sense. So if you know the way the industry works, it's a lot easier to work with data at Artsy. You get this gut feeling if the price for this medium type by this artist with it in these dimensions is roughly ballpark.
Right. Okay. So you've come from, your previous two companies have been mobility and fintech. Some would be maybe a little bit surprised that you take the direction change into art. But what kind of lessons have you brought with you that have applied to the art domain?
So coming from Flixbus and SumUp, which are both a bit larger organizations, that path from scale up to IPO is something that I'm very familiar with. So that's something that I'm bringing to Artsy as they are, growing. It's still quite a small company. We have about 250 people, maybe 80 in the engineering org, 80 to 100. As we're gearing up for that next step, for that larger scale, we can use the expertise that I'm bringing with me from those larger orgs.
So, sorry, you're gonna.
All yours.
No, I was just going to say, so building the platform and starting to scale and using your past experiences, data quality. You're working with such valuable assets. So how do you emphasize the importance of data quality?
Data quality is always a topic, I think, in any company. This is something that's super hard to do, right? Every company has stakeholders with certain expectations, SLAs around data quality, and as a product manager, it's always the job is always to find out, okay, which parts of the data do you really care about? Because we cannot guarantee accuracy, coverage, and freshness for everything. We have to prioritize, of course. And in the art world, the things that people are interested in most is things that make the news. So the auction results from last night's auction at Christie's, where records were broken, those are the things people are Googling, and we want them to land on our pages, of course. So those are the pipelines that we keep an eye on most.
With the secrecy within the industry, how does that affect your kind of data quality?
That's a great question because lots of auction houses, for example, like Christie's, they don't want you to know if a work didn't sell. So that's what we call bought in. It's when a work didn't reach the reserve price or didn't reach, the minimum that the seller wanted for it. So that's when an auction house will scrub the work from their website. They'll try and make it disappear. But of course, we don't let them. So we want to make that information transparent, right? Because it tells you a lot about where the artist is in their career. It tells you about the market for that type of medium or that type of style, basically. So we do try and make that transparent. We've got this price database at Artsy that you can just look up auction results on for the past couple of years for all of the major auction houses. And yeah, that is a contentious thing in the art industry.
Is there much prediction work carried out when you're not fully aware of prices?
We do that, but it's always hard to convey that to a user, because if you give them a very specific number, you're most likely going to be off, because even if a work comes up at auction, there's usually a range. There's like a minimum and a maximum, and sometimes the bidding will go on and do like triple the maximum. So actually, it's not called the maximum, it's called the high estimate. So that's basically what it is. It's an estimate. It's a range where we think a work should be. So in that sense, there's some prediction, but the macro predictions are even more interesting, because you can predict an artist's career as well. If they got their Masters in Fine Art from this institution, and then they had a solo show at age X, then they went on to be represented by a gallery, by the Karma Gallery, for example, in New York. They're known for being a springboard for up-and-coming artists. So that way you can predict the trajectory that an artist's career will have, and the price of their works are usually related to those career stages.
So obviously you have people wanting to invest in art and wanting to know the prices. It sounds like it's also a case on the other side that they can understand what price point that an artist should be selling their art.
Definitely, yeah. A lot of the art industry is still, stuck in the 20th or even 19th century, where a lot of appraising and a lot of price points are done based on gut feeling and based on connections, based on networks, basically. There's very little automation, very little use of data in the industry. I think we're one of the few tech companies, even in the art industry, who try to do that. Most of the competitors who try to do that too are doing it retroactively. So they're doing regression analysis. They're taking a look at how things came to be rather than wanting to predict.
So these could be very beneficial for artists earlier in their career, and they can maybe understand. Do people who want to invest in art, do they prefer is it like stocks and they're trying to catch an artist early, or is it the classics that they want to get a piece of because they know they can't be done again?
Question. Over the past 2 years, while the economy has become a little bit more brittle, we've seen a shift from wanting to pick up trending and emerging artists to more blue chip things that retain their value. That's just a shift towards conservatism, really. I mean, works by Warhol have been around for 50 years now. The prices have only gone up. There's thousands of them, so they're relatively easy to obtain, and they'll retain their value.
Okay, awesome. Talking about technology changing and industries evolving, AI, we thought that AI would come for the mundane jobs. They've decided to go for our creative jobs first, such as writing and art. What's the kind of industry's opinions on Mid-Journey, for example?
That's a really good question. Did you hear this morning that I think Grimes was in the news because she said, "Oh, it's fine, just take my music and create new things using AI, and I'll split the profits with the AI." thought that was really cool. As an industry, we were hoping that Web3 would help us facilitate this, letting artists, also for AI generated works, be tied to that work canonically on the blockchain, so that we could give them a piece of the profits every time a work was sold. Now, Web3 fell through. No art tech company is really invested in blockchain technology anymore. We all gave it a try, and it didn't really pan out. Unfortunately, that way of shepherding AI art into existence is faltered. Now, I mean, it's all open. We don't really know yet how to facilitate this, how to recognize AI versus the human that created the images that were fed into Midjourney or other technology. If you've got an idea in that space, I think we've got a job for you.
Nice. I mean, I think the high-end art, there won't be an issue there. I think it's maybe more the up-and-coming artists that might be a bit of a different trajectory and journey for those. With prints, etc., is this something that, I mean, the use case I think of outside of art is maybe, say, Louis Vuitton with fashion. They don't mind being ripped off because it allows them to increase the prices, and it's almost free advertising. Could this be similar in the art industry?
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, maybe. So what's great about this is that these images, they're digital, right? So in that sense, they are advertising, and in the end, you would want a piece with texture, something you can touch on your wall. And we're quite far removed from creating 3D art by an AI, especially when you think of sculptures or installations. Those are conceptually still very hard to do for any ML or even a language model or some kind of AI. So I'm really curious to see where that goes.
How could we use data to kind of analyze this?
That is a really good question. In the end, I'm not sure AI creates new things. It generates things based off of the training data you feed it.
Yeah.
And that way, so we use data. Data is always the foundation for anything that it creates. But then again, something Warhol said, I think, is good artists copy, great artists steal. And AI is no different in that sense. It just is a variation on the things you feed it. So it's data inspired art, really.
Because art's very much been in the real world and has been for thousands of years. We go into art in the digital world, so we can track and analyze what people are spending time clicking on. For example, Instagram, you know how long someone spends on an image. Are these parameters that we could utilize in the future?
The question is always, do these data points really tell us what we want to know? Because somebody might interact with art very differently from a pleasing image on Instagram or whatever. So I'm not sure that this would work, but I'd love to test it. I mean, this could be interesting. Authenticity is something that's very important in the art world, of course. Everywhere, really. If you go on Midjourney and you feed it some of your pictures, and it creates this very flashy version of you, and you then upload all of those images to your Tinder profile, you're going to get banned, because authenticity is important there too. People want the real thing. They don't want like a very smooth version of reality.
Yeah, I mean, something's just come to me there, and I'm thinking, you know how Spotify stream the music, and the artists are paid what 0.003 pence per stream.
Mhm.
If someone such as a Warhol had a piece of art and they fed all them into an AI, someone could have a Warhol, but a unique Warhol on their um, in their living room. I mean, could that be a development?
I
Would that
love how
work?
you called out Warhol here because he was one of the, well, maybe not one of the first ones, but one of the most well-known people or artists to embrace the factory model, where he would employ people to make works of art that carried his name on them.
Mm.
And there's lots of other massive artists that do that. Um, so yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, I haven't seen it happen yet, but this is definitely going to happen. There's going to be an artist that is going to use AI to do this. I mean, we even have a colleague, Damon. He's an artist. He makes digital art, and this digital art space is always set on the border between um, AI and or technology and art.
Mm.
Is it really art if you use a machine to create something? That's a debate.
I don't think it's going away anytime soon. It's just fascinating to talk because a lot of the AI stuff is digital world. It's kind of automating content for your blog, but when it's real world stuff and emotive stuff such as art, it's a bit more closer to the bone when we talk about the AI developments. Now, in a previous life, so you this is the Data for Good podcast, so we can't not talk about this today. So you started your own company for to try and make a positive impact on the world. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So when I finished uni, I was a bit more idealistic, a bit younger than I am now. This was around the start of the refugee crisis in Europe, in Germany, the Netherlands. Um, and we founded a company that was hoping to streamline the experience for refugees arriving on the shores of Greece.
Mm-hmm.
But also, when they made it to the Netherlands, we wanted to use technology uh, to set them up with locals, make sure that they start learning the language, get some
Yeah.
friends locally. That we thought that that would be the right way forward, using technology to basically improve the lives of people being displaced by the Syrian war, but also the people here receiving them and interacting with them.
So, what kind of incentives or projects did you set up to support these people?
The most basic one was a thing called the Welcome Dinner. Me and my friends, um, we created a website with a matching system, trying to combine locals or connect them to newly arrived refugees, so they would share a meal, invite them into their homes, and start off a relationship basically that way.
Mm-hmm.
The maybe more interesting from a technological perspective, business was around creating disaster relief products, like, for example, an oven that you can put on a beach in Greece, where people arriving by boat can burn their waste in. It creates heat, of course, to dry your clothes. It emits a Wi-Fi signal, so you can look up where to go next. You can charge your phone on them. So those were a bit more ambitious and lots of fun to design. We learned so much, but of course, it's super hard to monetize because who's going to do
Yeah.
that sort of thing?
No, exactly. But credit to you for wanting to do your bit and major lessons learned. What kind of lessons have you taken with you through what a great career you've had in, especially in products? But what lessons did you learn from those experiences?
First of all, design, of course. I mean, hardware is very hard these
Mm-hmm.
days. in data and software, things are a lot more malleable because they're not as tangible. So that's a lot easier. But also monetization. It's almost a dirty word when you're thinking about disaster relief or helping people. But back then, those companies didn't succeed because we were just young, idealistic people who wanted to do a good thing. But in order to put 1,000 ovens on a beach in Greece, you gonna need a business case.
Yeah.
And that's something that that I learned when I went into product management is having great ideas is not enough. You're gonna need to get some funding for them as well.
Has the kind of rise in data to back up and support ideas, has that increased your kind of abilities and success over the years?
I actually went into the platform space via data engineering because as a product manager, I was always frustrated that I had to wait for answers. I want to be able to create a notebook myself, get some answers straight from the source, torture the data until it confesses. Yeah, I took some courses.
The truth will come out.
I did, yeah, from helping people with refugee prices all the way to torturing data. Yeah, no. I took some courses in data analysis because I wanted to be able to be autonomous in decision making, and that's how I got into data engineering. And from there, you of course you generalize again as you get more teams. So data engineering turns really quickly into infrastructure engineering as well, because you need the underlying machines to do what you want. And then if you're in the platform space, usually you tack on things like security or start helping operations teams with like the Salesforce realm or CRM and other, more fundamental services.
When you get a taste for data, it's sets a fire. Yeah. And if there's a product manager who's looking to make the most of data and really get into the weeds, what would you advise?
All product managers have a T-shaped skill set, right? You have to have that base, so that really vertical part of that T. You have to be strong in something, so you can convince your engineering teams, other product managers, business leaders that you know what you're talking about. Officially, my title is something like Director of Technical Product Management, but I don't believe in technical product management. I think all types of product management are technical because you need a very specific skill set. You need something that you're knowledgeable about, something you can use to convince people that you know what you're talking about. And then from there, you can branch out into the generalist part of the T. That's what I would advise to any product managers. First, make sure that you know what you're doing in a very specific realm and branch out from there.
Okay, fascinating. So if someone's necessarily not from a data background, I don't know, specialism is in software engineering. Are you advising that stick to your speciality or get exposed to data?
Yeah, no, stick to it at first because you really want to have some expertise to build on. But then whether you are coming from software engineering or from marketing, it doesn't really matter. I think anybody can benefit from understanding the data. Also processing, so wrangling data and even visualizing it isn't super hard these days because almost anyone can use notebooks, for example, or we've got all these tools. Most companies have like a Tableau license or a Looker license or any kind of visualization license, even Power BI. That gives you an interface to get the answers you want. So you can start there. Even do like a degree, like a nano degree or a course in data visualization or analysis. that helps loads already. And after that, it's just storytelling, really.
Great advice. I think the rise of the data product manager is certainly on the horizon. And it's interesting to see people from a technical background, so maybe data scientists going into product management, which is probably something that we haven't seen previously. Maybe we'll finish on a little bit of advice for them. So these specialists who maybe have been a senior or staff data platform engineer or staff data scientist, and they're not necessarily wanting to go into product management, but they're being directed because it's a great asset to the business. What product management advice would you give to these previously super technical folks?
These people, they have a leg up on the competition because they actually have expertise that is related to the thing that they're going to build. So this is great already. They're in a great position. What I would advise them is to be a good product manager, you also need to be able to think strategically and translate that very technical bit to very simple terms so that the C-suite or other business leaders understand what the team's actually doing.
Yeah.
That's often the hardest part, is trying to condense all of these things and all of the plans that your team has into an image and 3 words you can put on a PowerPoint slide. And people are often pedantic about that type of work because it seems so much more simple than, I don't know, training a model. And it is, but it's also super hard to do storytelling in a way that it's concise and it gets your point across without losing your audience.
Yeah, it's a great skill, because when you're passionate about something, you just want to tell everything you know. And I think a skill with the product management is to tone it down, simplify it. And I think I can't remember who said it, but if you understand something well, you can describe it very, very simply.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. Thank you very, very much for your time and your rich insights, Wilhelm. Very relevant as well. The topics we discussed. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. To the listeners, please drop your questions and feedback, and we'll share those on future podcasts. And don't forget to like and share so we can reach as many people as possible. But it is bye from us. Thanks once again, Wilhelm.
Thank you.
Ciao for now.
See you.